Okay, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk, and I'm sitting here with Andrew Golding. Andrew is the CEO of Pam Golding Properties. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe you should just take us on a little bit of a journey where Pam Golding Properties first started. I think it was 1976.
Yeah, started in 1976 with my mom.
I am Pam Golding.
So she was a single agent and grew the business quite quickly, was in the right place at the right time here in Cape Town, selling mainly in the top end of the Cape Town market. She was a natural entrepreneur, and before too long the business started to grow, and as entrepreneurs do, offices were created, and here we are 42 years later. We 300 offices, 1,500 agents.
Wow.
And we're in 15 different countries.
Wow. So Andrew, when did your involvement come along? Because you're a GP.
Yes, I'm a doctor by training.
Right.
Many years ago.
Uh-huh.
And about 22 years ago, I joined the business, having been a GP in Cape Town. And yeah, so 1996 I started, when the business was considerably smaller. And I had a very steep learning curve right in the beginning. In those days, interest rates went to 25%.
I recall.
So I had to learn the ropes pretty quickly, but I've loved every minute of it.
Right,
Been a
fantastic.
great ride.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the success of the business? What do you think has been? I know it's a family business. It started by your mom. I mean, you're a monster business. You're one of the leaders in the industry. What do you think has been sort of?
Yes, I think it's about the ethos that she created. There's no question that there's a very specific culture. It's very much a family culture, but it's very much about acknowledging the desire of people to work with each other, like-minded people who subscribe to the same culture and values, and who have a passion for real estate and very specifically a passion for people and for service.
Right.
And so that's a critical component, I think, of our success and our specific DNA.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a lot of technology talk about technology, real estate, the future, and in fact, you've invested in easy.com, an online agency, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
Tell us about, I mean, how do you see this panning out? Because the business, it's changing, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I think it is in one way and not in another. So I think the role of the traditional agency, as defined by the requirement of clients to want to have a trusted advisor who's a warm body, a human being, in their living room giving them expert advice, I think is a sustainable model. And so for us, the core real estate traditional model is one that we believe in and we think has huge legs. But on the flip side, I think as technology develops, more and more choices need to be offered, predominantly because we think there's a significant opportunity for our group in the lower end of the South African market. We have a very good market share in the top end, but our market share as you go down the market decreases quite significantly. And the South African property market is predominantly under 2 million rand. Right. In terms of numbers of transactions. And our market share is not great there. And we think that there's an opportunity with a hybrid agency business, which still doesn't disintermediate agents. And I think there's an important distinction there. Agents are still involved, they're just involved in a different way.
Right.
And in a much more efficient and centralized way than the traditional model.
Right.
Is something that we think we want to offer to clients. And also that, perhaps if the digital trends around the world are going to be replicated here, then this could make up as much as 20 or 30% of the South African market. And then that's a chunky, sizable amount, and particularly in the bottom end.
Right. So looking ahead, I mean, where would you like to be, say 10 years from now in that space? Would you like to, I mean, you're the first then.
Yeah,
So
I think we'd like to be as significant in that space as we are in the traditional space.
Right.
And we want to make sure that if that develops into a really significant trend, and there are some commentators who are predicting that it might make up as much as 60% of the new real estate market, then clearly that's something we just can't ignore, and we want to be there and hopefully be a market leader in that space.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the bid. Is it BidX1?
Yeah.
BidX1?
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, so we've got aspirations really in terms of the long-term vision of the group to be a comprehensive property services group. So that's about really taking any property service and making sure that we're able to operate it both within South Africa, but also in terms of the African continent, where we have a particular view. And BidX is a online auction platform, originally out of Ireland, now in the UK. They are very significant in the UK and Irish markets in the online auction business. And they have a fantastic tech platform which we've bought into, so we are JV partners of theirs. They're coming in South Africa as BidX One South Africa.
Right.
And we are going to be launching this early in the new year. It's a pure online digital auction platform, going to be targeting the entire South African property market, so commercial, residential, distressed sales, and the whole gamut of property that can be auctioned. And the wonderful thing about this platform is that it's completely transparent, it's extremely efficient, and purchasers are able to log on from anywhere in the world and in real time, live, bid on properties by being able to see who they're up against. So every buyer gets registered for a specific property, and then once the auction starts, you can see completely transparently where your bid is and where your competitors' bids are. And the rules are very clear. There are no ghost bids from anywhere possible, and as a consequence of that, it's an extremely efficient, transparent, user-friendly, tech-enabled process.
Right. So it looks like you're covering all bases here.
Well, I don't know on all bases, but it's really coincidental that these two acquisitions have happened at the same time. They've been part of a view that we've had around looking at future trends for quite some time. It just happens that they both came together in this quarter of the financial year.
Right. Okay, so if we start looking at your traditional business, I mean, you've got easy.com at the bottom, and you say at the top end it's kind of could stay the same. Could you see cannibalizing of some of that?
No, so I think there won't be cannibalization. I think that the two value propositions are fundamentally different. You've got a traditional agency model, which needs to, I think, as a consequence of these changing models, really take time to articulate the value proposition to clients. And I think that's a value proposition that is really compelling. I think what's happened in the past is that that value proposition hasn't been clearly enough defined, and there's been murkiness around what value clients actually get from traditional estate agents. I think with the changing models, there's now an opportunity to really define that very clearly, so that there's no ambiguity in the mind of both sellers and buyers, but specifically sellers, as to what they're contracting with when they get a traditional agent. And ironically, I think that this is going to allow the value proposition to be more appreciated rather than less, because where you have a really significant expert agent who is able to add value to a transaction, then that's easy to justify the value. I think the flip side also applies, which is that where you have a mediocre agent who is just really riding on the coattails of an industry that has a methodology that is accepted, then I think that that model can be challenged.
Right.
And that therefore there is an opportunity for consumers to say, hold on a second, I'm not sure that I understand this value proposition. Isn't there anything else?
Right.
And that's where I think the hybrid model comes in. So, I think like in any service industry and in the purchase of any product, there is an opportunity to kind of get what you pay for. And certainly in terms of the hybrid models, they offer a lower cost, fixed fee, but different service. Right. And that's what you're going to get, as opposed to the traditional model, which I think needs to define itself in a much more clear way around significantly enhanced service levels and a much more justifiable value proposition, which can justify premium pricing relative to the more flat fee hybrid models.
But we are seeing sort of commissions under pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just seen now F&B have launched an app, and they're playing in your sort of area now. Yeah. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Certainly, it's taken the industry by surprise. I think it's not exactly clear how the market's going to react, but certainly in terms of the relative interests, it would appear that F&B have crossed the line in terms of providing a potential service which looks to disintermediate agents, and that is something that they needed to have thought through, and maybe they have. And how the industry reacts will be very interesting in the next little while.
Yeah, I'm sure. Andrew Golding, CEO of Pam Golding Properties, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Pleasure.
Thank you.